Hey everyone, as we know, Google likes to add new things and enhance their products all the time. And one of their newest is adding rubrics. And I think it's going to be something that you're going to be delighted that they've added. I'm going to give you a little insight first, and then I'm going to show you in action what it looks like. So first, when you are in your assignments in Google Classroom, you're going to notice at the bottom now there is a button with a plus and the word rubric. So if you click on that, then you're going to get this little pop-up box over here, and it's going to pop below, but it's going to have three things in it. You can either create a rubric right from scratch, you can reuse a rubric that you've already used in Google Classroom, or you can import a rubric from Google Sheets. And there's also a way for you to export your rubric. So if you're working in teams, if there are other teachers, if you develop a rubric that is awesome and that other people want, you can export that and share it with them so that they can import it into their Google Classroom. So it really is a nice way for teachers to collaborate. So this is a very cool feature. Okay, so if you picked the first option to create a rubric, you're going to get a pop-up screen. And I know this is really busy, but this is sort of like what the screen looks like. And there's a few different things. So it's going to take the name from your assignment name. And then there's the scoring option. And if it's on the right where there's the black there, then the scoring is going to be used. And if it's on the left, there's going to be no score. So some teachers don't like to use scoring because the kids just look at the score and then that's all they focus on. So this is a good thing. You can turn it off, especially if you're like partway through and they're passing you in a draft. You can use the rubric without scoring for the draft and show the kids exactly where they would stand. And then they're going to redo their edits using the rubric that you give them. And then in the end, when it's a summative assessment, you can turn the scoring on. So I really like that feature, so you can turn it on and off. This right here it's either ascending or descending. So usually it's defaulted, the default is descending. So like your highest criteria is the first thing they'll see, and then it will go down, it'll descend, but that can be changed. This total points over here, right now it just has one because we only have this one criteria option. So this number is going to change as you add more things and you change the numbers here. So if I change the points here, then the points on this one criteria will increase, and then it's going to increase this number. And then the more criteria we add, then that will go up. So in the example that I'm going to show you, I'm going to do 2 points for each criteria. Either, they meet the requirement, they're kind of there, or they don't have it at all. So, so you'll see that in a moment. And then the criterion title. So that's just like what you're looking at. So is it collaboration? Is it punctuation? Is it the quotation? So whatever the criteria that you're looking for, that's what that title is. So if my criterion title was punctuation, maybe my description is going to be, proper punctuation is used throughout the entire writing sample. So then my level title, let's say that they met my expectations, and I would say, depending on the grade level, we'll make it really easy. We're going to say, every sentence begins with a capital letter and ends with proper punctuation. So if I added a level, I might be saying that the majority of their paper has proper punctuation, maybe 75%, or I can decide on the criteria. Then you can just hit this plus button at the end to add another one. So that's how you would add the other criteria. And again, the points, you can associate a point with each one, and then the possible points would increase here and then there. There's these three little dots on the side. We love those little submenus. And so you can duplicate it. So if you have it all set up the way you want, I would probably do that if I set it up this way. I would make it the one way, and then I would just duplicate and reuse it. And then this one up here is just if you want to delete. So that's if you want to create the rubric from within Google Classroom. That's my least favorite way of doing it, but you could certainly do that. So that's how you would do that. The second option is if you're reusing a rubric. So if you've used it once, you can reuse it. So if you clicked that reuse button, you're going to get this pop-up window. And then in here, you can click on the drop down to select your class. So this is just picking the class that I'm in right now, but I can go to different classes if I used a rubric in another section. And then you're going to click on the rubric that you want, and then you're going to click select. Now, obviously, I don't have very many rubrics that I've done before, so that's why there's not very many options. And then the last one is the import from sheets. So if I clicked that import one, then I would get this window. and it automatically looks in my Google Drive in my spreadsheets. So it looks for all spreadsheets I have. I just click on the one I want, so you can see it has all the different ones that I've worked on, and then I would just click the Add button. So that's sort of how I would import. So here I am in my class, and I'm going to go to my classwork page, and I have a draft of something that we're going to do later, but I'm going to grade these paint pot tutorials. So I'm going to click on this, and I have 3 students that have turned in assignments. And so if I click on a student, then I have the attachment here, and I've already looked at this student's work, and so I can start grading the rubric, and you can see the rubric is right below it. So these are programming files, so it's not something that we can open up in this program. This right here can expand the criteria. So I can click on these and say, and I can give them, I can tell them exactly what they're doing because I worked on this rubric and I already know. But if it's been a long time when I first started getting started, I might open it up and sort of see all the detail behind the rubric. So this is the title that we had. This is the description of it, and then these are the levels and the descriptions within each level. So for meaningful names, so they have to have different components in their program, and I want them to have all meaningful names in there. So I want to be able to look at it and say like, okay, I can tell what that does by its name. And so if they meet their standard, then all of their components have the names, and it's apparent that they have what they need. And incomplete means that they don't have. They're using the default name, which is called like button 1, button 2, button 3. That gives me no information. They need to have buttons, so they have it. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to grade this person's, and I've already gone through their files. So the only thing that they don't have, there's only one thing. They didn't have the .aia file. They attached the wrong file type for me. So I can collapse this, and so you can see what it looks like in the collapsed view. And you saw what it looks like in the full view. So I can add a private comment when I'm sending it back to my student. So I can add one right here. Oops, and I forgot to put the grade. So I'm going to hit cancel. So I've added the grade. So the grade's in here now. And now I have a message for the student. So I'm thanking them for submitting their work. I'm telling them that their program included all the requirements except for the one piece, the file type. So I want them to look at the rubric, make the necessary adjustments, and resubmit the file. So I'm going to return that to the student. And so you can see how easy it was to go through and grade. So for example, let me do this one. You know, this student had all the criteria. I've already looked at it, so I can just go right down the list, give them the point, and then I can return it. And you can have a few things set about, you know, checking the rubric, like that line I could probably repeat again and put that into the students, into the response. But let's look to see at the student. So this is the student. So we're going to go in and we're going to refresh their mailbox. And so they get a message that the paint pot was graded and that I added a private comment. So they're getting 2 messages in their emails. And so that's going to prompt them to go in and look at their classwork. So when they're in here, and if they view their assignment, they can see their submission up here. They can see my message down here. And right here, they can see the rubric right underneath. So it's really easy for them to see. And then they could expand if they wanted, just like we can expand. So they can see exactly what's missing. So this is the one that they're like, okay, that's what they're going to fix. So it makes it nice and easy for the student as well. Okay, so now we're going to go back into the teacher. And we're going to go back to our classwork, and I'm going to close this one out, and I'm going to go to the paint pot enhancements. Let me just scroll down, and I'm going to edit this one because it was a draft. So I did not have my rubric attached yet, and I want to show you about the rubrics. So this is the one that we're going to import, and then there's a couple of different templates out here. So the way it works is this first row, it doesn't mean anything. So this is going to get ignored, but you have to have it. The second row, you have to have this V1.0 through F. It has to be there. And then you start your criteria on row 3. So each criterion that you use uses 4 rows. And then the columns will depend on how many criteria. So this one is just a 2 criteria. Either you meet it or you don't. But sometimes you might have like a 4 criteria. So you see this one is like, you know, 4 levels. I have an example of a 5 level, so that it looks the exact same. It's these colored pieces that you need to fill in. So if I was doing this and this was a template, I would do File, Make a Copy. I would make sure I named it something that would make sense for what I was doing. So instead of level 5 rubric, I would just say, you know, paint pot or whatever assignment I'm working on. I would make sure that it went in the right spot. So again, you can click and you can decide which folder it's going on before you even create it. So you guys should go into your drive and you should make sure that you're putting it exactly in the file that you want. So I happen to have, sometimes you can see I put numbers on my folders so that things will pop up. I don't have a folder in here yet, so let me do a new folder that maybe I can put my rubrics. Maybe I'll call it Google Classroom Rubrics. I'd probably put my rubrics with the unit that I'm working on. That would probably be the better way. So once I did that, then I can select this folder. And so that's where it's going to go. And I click OK. So now it's going to make this new. If I forgot to name it, I could change the name here. I could also move it from here. So this folder right here, I can click on that to move it. So now if I had like 4 different criteria I wanted to use, I would just highlight this. And I would either right click to copy, and I don't even know where oh, there it is at the tippity top, right click copy, or I use the Control C to copy. And look at your keyboard. So the X is to cut, the C is to copy, and the V is to paste. So I usually do just the Control C. I'm using a Mac right now, so that's why it's has the weird symbol. And then I'm going to paste, and I'll click under to the next row underneath. Right? So I want to click below that line and paste. And so now I have my 4 criteria, and I would change the rubric name, and I would change anything that was highlighted so it would be filled in. So this is the one that I worked on for my new assignment that I'm going to do this week. So it's still going to meet the standards or be incomplete. Those are the 2. And the kids that go above the standards, I give them a separate note. I just don't have that criteria in there. So they need to still have meaningful names. Now they have to have 4 color buttons, so they're adding a new button. They have to have a different button. So this explains everything that the kids need to have, and all of these criteria are going to be moved in. So, and I'm going to make this one a 14-point assignment. So I have 7 different criteria this time. So this time I'm going to have points. So I'm going to show you how what that looks like. So I'm going to hit plus, and I'm going to import from Sheets. And this is the one that I wanted. So remember, when you're in Sheets, this is the icon view, but you can switch your view. So you can have the list view. So I had the grid view, which was the icons. So this is the one I want. I'm going to add that, and it imports it. So this time I'm going to turn the scoring on. And so it knows that my assignment was out of 14 points, so it puts the 14 here. So each of mine, it just automatically decided if I want it to be a 14-point assignment, then it's going to be 2 points for meeting it. And then they thought that I'd get 1 point for incomplete. But for me, if it's incomplete, I'm going to change all of those to 0. Because if it's incomplete, I'm not going to give them anything for this, because we only have at this point in time, I'm going to make them do it until they get it right, until they meet the requirements. So I'm just making that slight change, but you can see how easy it is to change little things. So you can make adjustments if you wanted. You could add in criteria if you wanted. Okay, so I think I have it set. Don't think I missed, so I'm just checking to make sure I didn't miss anything, and I didn't. And now I just click the Save button. So now the criteria is there. There's 7 criteria. It's 14 points in total. Do you see how there's an X there? I can delete that out at this point in time, and I'm just going to assign this right now. So I can delete the rubric if I need to, but once you add a grade to it, you cannot. So like this paint pot tutorial, so if I went in, if I wanted to make changes to this assignment, it's not going to let me delete this out. So I can't delete it once I've made a grade. So you see it has a check mark on it that shows that I've already graded that. So again, the student sees all of the criteria and they can see the point value. So if you have something that's worth more points, obviously that's a skill you're going to teach the students. Look for your big point values and make sure you change. So you could make the point values, you can turn certain things more points than others. So I'm going to have this person just mark it as done, just so we can go in and grade. And we're going to take a look. Pete has done it. And so I can go, so Pete has a custom image. He definitely has meaningful names. Oh, he forgot one of the buttons. I want you to notice as I click the different criteria to show what Pete does and does not have, his score is changing. So it's It's increasing his number. It's saving as draft as I go on. So I don't need to grade this. And I'm not going to put a comment on right now, and I'm going to hit return. So maybe I'm checking partway through, so maybe I just have a generic comment. So I'm going to send that back. And so if Pete takes a peek now, he can look and he can see where he lost his points. And so that's the different view with the points. And again, he can expand if he wants, and he can take a look to see exactly where he lost his points. And that essentially is the rubric. So I hope you enjoy using it. And if you have any questions, please let me know.